Hello, Nike here. This video will be a copy of the first part of my What If Naruto Was a Girl series. In the original, I spoke the whole audio file in one go without any breaks. In the second one, I recorded each paragraph in a separate audio file, which enabled me to do retries when I stumbled over the words or the sound quality was too poor. Comparing the two, I consider part 2 to be a jump in quality, and I don't want part 1, which will likely be the first one that people see, to be noticeably inferior to anything that comes after. These videos are scripted, so this will really be a word-for-word repeat. If you've seen the original video already, you are unlikely to find anything new here, so be aware of that. What would be different if Naruto was a girl? Well, let me go out on a limb and say that it's very much possible that nothing changes at all. The adventures that the original Naruto goes through, his development, and the way the world as a whole reacts to her might not change all that much. Bullying and social isolation isn't exclusive to young boys. I mean, Boruto might not happen, and Hinata's crush might take on another form, and there might be even more sexual tension between Sasuke and Naruto than there was in canon, but other than that, it's possible that nothing will change. But in that case, this video would be very pointless, so I'm going to introduce some butterflies to conjure up some whirlwinds. Hopefully those butterflies won't seem too unreasonable. So as the first butterfly, I'd like to summon one Ino Yamanaka. Why her? Well, because of all the people that might make a change in Naruto's childhood, yes, that's what I'm calling female Naruto, I consider Ino the most likely. The reason for that is the relationship between Ino and Sakura. In flashbacks, we see that Sakura used to be an insecure little girl who was bullied for her large forehead. Now, Ino reached out to Sakura, was bullied, and made an effort to befriend her. Given that she did that, I think it's very believable that Ino might reach out to Naruto in a similar fashion. If she saw a little girl sitting on that famous swing, tears in her eyes from being rejected yet again by those of her age, I believe Ino might take pity there and try to reach out. Well, why didn't she do so in canon? Well, at that age, girls and boys do tend to keep to themselves. Boys play with the boys and the girls with the girls. Exceptions exist, of course, but on average this tends to be true, and I believe it's enough to justify this canon divergence. When will this happen? I'd say it happens after Sakura and Ino already made friends. The reason for this is that Naruto's loneliness isn't as obvious as Sakura's. Naruto, just like Naruto, tries to hide her own pain and loneliness behind a lot of false bravado. Maybe this wasn't always the case, but when a child cries and nobody comes to its aid, it will eventually try other ways to protect itself. Naruto had a terrible childhood. We know that the canon Naruto lives in his own apartment with almost no oversight from a very early age. What happened before that time is something we can only speculate on. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. So let's wind back time, all the way to when Minato died and the question of Naruto's guardianship must have come up. Given that Jiraiya was her godfather, he would probably have been offered the chance to raise her, which he refused. He refused in canon, and I see no reason why a gender would change that. Now Jiraiya's actions can be explained here, though this too is only speculation. After the death of the fourth Hokage, they'd probably need someone of his skill to run missions. With the death of its greatest shinobi, and the village having suffered a lot of damage from the Kyuubi attack, the other nations might just want to test Konoha's strength, and it was important to keep up a strong front. The same was done in the aftermath of the Sound/Sland invasion later on, with most Jonin out in the field and getting forced to take on missions that would normally be considered beyond them. Jiraiya might also just be too heartbroken to take care of Naruto, a living reminder of the student he had lost. None of that justifies his behavior. It's still a very douchey move to leave your goddaughter to fend for herself and not even introduce yourself until much, much later. I'm just trying to explain it. He might check up on her once in a blue moon, when he is in the village, to see if she's alright, and secretly leave her a frog-themed present, like Naruto's canon wallet, but that's about it. Now, that still leaves the question of where Naruto ended up in her earliest years. Her identity as the daughter of the fourth Hokage is a secret, and unlike her Jinchuriki status, a well-kept one. That Jinchuriki status, I think, is a reasonable explanation for why no family was willing to take her in. The next option is the Konoha orphanage, the same orphanage that Kabuto went to. I'm going to say she didn't end up there either, given that it's never brought up in canon. Maybe the third Hokage considered Naruto too valuable to allow Danzo the opportunity to influence her, whether because she is a Jinchuriki or because she is the daughter of a dear friend. Because Danzo did have his finger in that particular orphanage, I'm going to guess that the third Hokage wasn't completely unaware of that. Or maybe Naruto was considered too dangerous by whomever was in charge of the orphanage at the time to be allowed in. Or maybe she did go there briefly but was kicked out at such an early age she barely remembers it. What I'm going to headcanon here is that the third Hokage had a continuous stream of D-rank missions that said they had to take care of baby Naruto until she was old enough to take care of herself. By which he meant until she was old enough to walk, talk, and know how to put food into a microwave. These shinobi took care of Naruko's physical needs, but didn't really take care of the emotional needs a child of that age has. Naruko had no parental figures at that age of any kind. All of this backstory was to explain why Naruko, as a general rule, tried to act out instead of cry a lot. What's the point of crying if nobody seems to care? Now, before we go back to Ino and Sakura, I'd like to address another event that happened a little before that time. The incident where Hinata was being bullied by 3 boys and Ken and Naruto came to her rescue. I'm going to say that this event happened exactly the same way. Naruko is not shy about picking a fight. I mean, it's not like anyone else is going to fight on her behalf. I don't see why this event would change based solely on her gender. Would Hinata's crush change based on her gender? Well, at the age there, I'd say the question is irrelevant. Hinata looked up to the one who came to her rescue, and that won't change. Whether something romantic will come of that? But we'll see, won't we? Okay, now back to Ino and Sakura. While crying and openly showing her feelings is a rarity for her, on this day it all became too much. She tried to hide her face with her sleeve, but only half-heartedly. Somewhere in the back of her mind, a part of her hopes against hope, against all reason and prior experience, that someone just might give a damn. Out of the corner of her eye she would see 2 girls approaching. These were in fact part of the group that had refused to let her be part of their play earlier. She honestly doesn't know what to do. A part of her wants to put on the mask of the delinquent troublemaker, become the Naruto who can stand up to the world and not be sad she's not a part of it. A part of her that she doesn't want to admit to wants these 2 to take pity on her. If not that, at least make them feel guilty for making her cry. Making others feel guilty tended to be the best she could usually get for her tears. Hey, are you alright? The blonde one, Ino, Naruko thought her name was, asked. Ino, for her part, was also unsure about all this. I mean, this was Naruko the troublemaker. The one who scribbled stupid pictures on her sensei's classboard when he was away. The one who always showed up to class late, and sometimes not at all. She had these strange whisker marks and didn't act like a proper girl. Her hair wasn't that well kept, and her clothes tended to not be all that clean most of the time. Clearly, her parents didn't raise her right. She had been the one to tell her off before, but she also hadn't objected to it. Neither she nor Sakura wanted anything to do with Naruko normally. I mean, she was way too abrasive on top of everything else, but seeing her in this state still bothered her. Sakura took little convincing to come along. Sakura was very much Ino's follower at this point. Why do you care? Naruko would respond, looking at them and making them see her red tear-stricken face. Let them feel guilty, she thought. Look, we didn't mean to make you cry, Ino would say. Technically it had been her that made her cry, but she still felt bad about it. Fine, Naruko would say, because really what else was she going to say? Admit weakness? Beg for help? Well, do you want to hang out with us? Ino would ask, still somewhat unsure, but this felt like the right thing to do somehow. Naruko would blink twice, wiping her nose with the sleeves of her shirt while doing so. What? She would ask, not sure if she heard correctly. I said, do you want to hang out with us? Ino would ask with more force this time, expecting the offer to be turned down. If Naruko wanted to cry by herself, that was fine, but she didn't need to act as if the very idea of hanging out with the 2 of them was so ludicrous it merited double-checking. Yes, Naruko said, her heart, which until that point had been contracting painfully due to sadness, seemed to do a flip-flop. Well, come along then. We could try finding some flowers. My parents own a flower shop, you know. Naruko would follow along, and for the rest of their time together act very unlike both Sakura and Ino were used to. Naruko at this point would be adopting the most inoffensive behaviors you could think of, and simply quietly go along with both other girls. She spoke only when spoken to, and answered any questions with short, safe answers. When asked whether she wanted a couple flowers to bring home to her own parents, she simply said, no. Throughout all the rest of the day, Naruko felt like she should say something more, to thank them somehow, but she was so unused to thanking anyone for anything the words didn't leave the privacy of her own thoughts. When the time to say goodbye came for the day, she ate the other girls, see you tomorrow. The next day, Naruko made a beeline towards the academy, arriving not only on time but almost an hour early. Remembering the spot where Sakura and Ino tended to sit together, She sat herself right next to where they would normally sit. For the next hour, Naruko would wonder about what would happen when Ino and Sakura arrived. Would they see her and go sit somewhere else? Would they insist she surrender her spot to the girl who usually occupied this spot? Students didn't have a strictly assigned spot, but everyone did sort of pick a seat and consider it in theirs. So what if everyone would gang up on her and insist she move? The first person whose arrival she was waiting/dreading for was the girl whose seat she had taken. As expected, this girl wanted her seat back. Naruko claimed that she was here first, and if the other girl wanted her seat back, she should just try and make her move. A small fight would break out at this point between Naruko, the girl whose seat she had stolen, and a few other girls who all sided against Naruko. It was to this scene that Sakura would arrive, seeing Naruko pushing and pulling against several other girls for the seat next to the one that was traditionally hers. Angrily, she would ask in a loud voice, "Naruko, what do you think you're doing?" "I wanted to sit here is all. I came here first and they can't make me leave," Naruko would say, at this point having almost forgotten her original reason and was fully in her me against the world mindset. She resolved she wouldn't leave the spot now, even if Sakura or Ino insisted she do so. Sakura would sigh at this and say, "Look, if you want to sit next to us, then let's just go sit somewhere else." That knocked the fight right out of her, and made her remember what she actually wanted. Grabbing her things, she quickly followed after her pink-haired friend? Was that where they were now? Sakura went to sit next to the spot where Naruko would usually sit. Everyone always liked to leave at least one seat between her and them, so it wasn't like they were stealing someone else's spot now. Ino arrived not long after, searching the classroom with her eyes until she spotted her in Sakura, and simply took her seat on Naruko's other side, saying hi to her and Sakura as if the day was a normal school day like any other. Naruko, if possible, paid even less attention to their sensei's lecture than usual. She was too busy contemplating her new situation, what it would mean, and trying to keep the lump in her throat under control. She didn't want Ino or Sakura to think her weird after all. And that's where we're going to leave things for now. And if you somehow also watched part 1, then please tell me if you think there is a noticeable improvement. Have a nice day, everyone. Thanks out.